Colorado brought in one of the most wild card transfers in the portal in college football in Shedeur Sanders. How good can he be? Can he be elite or will he be average? We're going to talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Buffs.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba, and joining me today is Clint Brewster, 24 from 24/7 Sports, former college quarterback. Clint, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Clint's going to scout and evaluate some of Colorado's top two players, and we're going to discuss what their ceiling is heading into the 2023 season. Before we do, this episode is brought to you by the Locked On Network. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts with your team every single day. Okay, Clint, I found you because, I always knew about you. You're scouting everybody. You're breaking down what everybody's good at. You're a former quarterback yourself, so you know the struggles. You know what to look for in a fellow quarterback. And so you did a recent breakdown of Shedeur Sanders, who I called, obviously, in my intro, the wild card quarterback of college football. He tore up the FCS level like it was easy, and now he's making the jump from the FCS to the Power 5. And so what do you think about Shedeur Sanders, just in general?
Yeah, I think when you look at the tape, right away you see his passing instincts really stand out. Just his ability to throw away from coverage, his timing, anticipation, kind of all those things. I don't know. A lot of people say maybe he doesn't have the most elite arm talent, the most twitchy arm, or the greatest mobility, or all those physical tools, but he really makes up for it when you look at his feel for the position. When you study the film, he threw 40 touchdowns last year compared to 6 interceptions, so he really values the football. I think you can tell that he's got great instincts for the position, like I was saying earlier. And, he's got those NFL bloodlines. He's been coached extremely well. I don't know if there's another player, another quarterback in college football that talks to Tom Brady on a weekly basis like he does. That's just he has that type of coaching at his disposal. So that's just, I think that's it says a lot right there.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of things working with him. I think his arm strength, like you touched on, is one of the more underrated traits. His wide receiver coach, Brent Bartolone, I believe is how you say his name. He coached Carson Strong in Nevada, and he said it was similar to that. And so that's exciting for Colorado fans who had probably some of the worst quarterback play in the country, if not the worst quarterback play in the country a year ago. So now they kind of get a facelift there. What do you think the biggest challenges are for a quarterback like Shedeur? Because I think obviously everyone's comparing him to Cam Ward because he went from Incarnate Word to Washington State a year ago. And obviously at Incarnate Word, he was throwing for 50 touchdowns, minimal interceptions. It was kind of looking like Johnny Manziel out there, if you will, just running around making plays. I think it's a Washington State and still has a good stat line, but the record at Washington State wasn't what they hoped and was there was growing pains. What do you think the growing pains will be for Shedeur?
Well, I think that he's got to come together and gel with those new guys. Obviously, there's a lot of new transfer portal players there, and he's going to have to gel with them and find some cohesiveness. I don't know how good their offensive line will be. We'll see about that. I think that he's got a lot of speed at receiver, so that's good. But he obviously there's much expectation that comes with being Deion Sanders' son and primetime son. So all eyes are going to be on him. There's going to be some pressure there, but I think that he deals with it well. He's always kind of been in the spotlight, being Prime's son. But I don't know how good Colorado's defense will be, especially too in the Pac-12. I don't know if he'll really have the defense on his side. The best defense in the Pac-12 last year was Oregon State, and they were 25th in the country in total defense. So I don't know how good. I'm kind of getting off track here, but I don't know how good the defenses will be in the Pac-12, especially at Colorado, with a lot of new faces. But they have a good coach there in Charles Kelly that I know well, and at defensive coordinator. So we'll see. But he's going to need some help on defense, and just help around him, and especially in the running game. They have Alton McCaskill, a transfer from Houston, who should be pretty good. But we'll see how they do in the trenches. Obviously, there's a whole new roster, and they didn't have much up front last season. So we'll see how improved they are, in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and I like the point you made about the defense, because Oregon State's defense, while it was solid last year, 25th in the country, and that's the ceiling. So that means everybody else was hopefully top 30 at best. And I doubt there was that many other top 30 teams. Like, off the top of my head, I would guess Utah was pretty close. But other than that, there's not that many other solid defenses in the Pac-12. And so I think that kind of helps. Realistically, when I look at Shedeur, the thing that I'm most interested in, and I want to get your thoughts on this before we move on, is how he handles adversity. You talked about his 40 touchdowns to 6 interception ratio, which is fantastic. And he had success the year prior. But it also shows, which to no fault of his own, it means he's doing his job right. But he hasn't had to deal with many opportunities where maybe he gets picked off 2 possessions in a row, or maybe the offensive line is struggling and not really giving him time to throw. I want to see how he handles adversity. I wanted to get your thoughts on the importance of handling adversity as a quarterback. I had Max Brown on yesterday, and he said it's probably one of the most important things, especially when you go from one program to another.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a great question, Kevin. I think that he's there's no question that he's going to have some adversity there. You look at his schedule, you look at the teams that they're playing. They open up with TCU right off the bat, who's got some really good players in the defensive secondary. He's going to throw some interceptions, but I think that he's shown that he can deal with it in the past. I mean, he's just such a sharp-minded kid. I just think that he's going to be great. At Colorado, he's going to deal with with that adversity. There's going to be ups and downs there, but I think from what he's shown so far, just his intellectual capacity and all of that, that you have to deal with at the quarterback position, he's so good with. He's so sharp with mentally breaking down the game and dealing with all that. So I think that he does really well with all that, and I think that he's in for a big year.
Yeah, and one more question. I lied. We got one more question before I move on.
Sure.
Sean Lewis's offense is one of the fastest offenses in college football. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it translates to the Power 5, because obviously at Kent State, there was some productive times and then some unso-productive times, but it worked out for the most part. What do you think about Shedeur playing in his 3rd offense in 3 years? Do you think the Power 5 is going to kind of, being at the Power 5 level, will make it harder, or is it just all about his preparation, which I feel like he prepares quite well?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be harder, but he'll have better players. He's got some really good receivers there. Jimmy Horn Jr. They've got some real good speed at wide receiver for him to get the ball to. Obviously, like we talked about before, the defenses aren't going to be the most stout in the Pac-12, but I think that he's really familiar with that Sean Lewis offense. It was a lot like the offense he was playing at Jackson State. I think that the terminology and the system and the scheme are pretty similar to what he's had the past 2 years. So he should be good with it, and like I said, we talked about how sharp he was and how he prepares. I think that he's going to have no problem really stepping in that offense. And I really like what Sean Lewis does, and just kind of simplifying the game and really just getting the ball to the playmakers there in that offense.
Yeah, I like getting the ball to people who are fast and athletic and can make anyone miss is a good idea for anybody, really. Highly recommended, 10 out of 10, especially with those defenses that Clint's out there chuckling about. I see you, Clint. Maybe a little chuckle about the Pac-12 defenses. Okay, before we move on, I want you guys to know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting everything from money line to over under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Shohei Ohtani is always my go-to. Doesn't really matter who he's playing. He's probably going to hit a home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, Clint, we talked about Shedeur Sanders. I would say he's probably the face of the offense. But the next player we're talking about is probably the face of the team. Travis Hunter, former #1 overall recruit, someone that I've had multiple people come on the show and say that he has the best ball skills they've ever seen for someone his age. Coach Prime himself said that he was better. Travis was better than him at this age. What do you think Travis's impacts, potential, and everything in between could be on both sides of the ball?
I mean, he could be a top 5 pick on offense and defense. You know, he has that type of generational talent. Just the playmaking ability is just really special with him. What you see, I mean, we saw it at Jackson State towards the end of the season last year when he was fully healthy, because he was really banged up in the early parts of last year and didn't really get to practice and focus on his craft at the position. I think that he's got just such tremendous upside because he hasn't been able to focus on one position, you know, and I think with the coaching at Colorado and the players around him, I think that you know, the kind of the sky's the limit with him, and he can be, you know, one of the top players in college football overall and be a top 5 pick. I mean, it's just remarkable the explosiveness he has when going up to get the ball, you know, after the catch. Just all those things that you can't really coach is just remarkable with him. You know, he's a top player in the country coming out of high school for a reason, and I think we saw a little bit of that last year, but you know, I think there's so much development that can be that's still there for him that we haven't seen yet, that we'll continue to see. I'm so excited for him. He's the top player in the transfer portal. I mean, he's just so fun to watch, and I think that, you know, he's obviously already kind of a household name and will continue to be, and you know, who knows, maybe a top 5 pick in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think he's got all the potential. And I think there's 2 things that really speak out about Colorado when I think of Travis Hunter. One, not only did Coach Prime get him to go to Jackson State, but he got him to follow him to Colorado, which is a project. We're going to call it a project because a lot of projects, they could go well, they could go bad. It doesn't matter. As long as you're telling your mom before the night before that you need a poster board, the project can go well. If you're telling her the night before that you need a poster board, from experience, doesn't go well. Something I'm interested to get your take on is, you talked about knowing Charles Kelly and like your familiarity with him. What does having Charles Kelly and Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, one of the best defensive backs, if not the best ever, helping you out if you're Travis Hunter? How does that help you?
Well, I mean, it's just everything, and just and you know, they have a track record of developing players. You know, Charles Kelly, you know, with his veteran experience, approach to the game. I mean, he was you know, he was looked at to be a college football head coach. You know, a couple of years back, I know when Auburn had some openings, his name was floated out there, that they were seriously considering him. I think that he's just a wonderful defensive coordinator, and you know, it's a big year for him now that he's finally calling defensive plays, and he has the reins there at Colorado. He'll really be able to show people what he has. And I just think that I think the world of him. I think that he's really going to surprise some people with his scheme and with his ability to coach, and you know, his ability to coach Travis Hunter and some of those other guys like Cormani McClain that are there. He's going to have some really talented players, and you could tell that he developed that talent that was at Alabama. He was a great recruiter, obviously Prime there as well. I don't think that there's a better defensive backs coach in the country, maybe than him. Maybe Nick Saban, but he's. I think that there's not a better spot for Travis Hunter to be in the country other than right there in Colorado, being coached by them too, for sure.
Yeah, that dynamic duo of him and Cormani is going to be interesting. And when I met Charles at the spring game, because I went out to Boulder, he's just a dude that likes ball. You could just tell. He just doesn't really care about anything else. He was asked they were like, do you have any special guests coming to the game? And he's like, I guess my wife. I don't know. Like they were expecting like a famous name drop. And he's like, my wife. He's like, I'm just here coaching football. And I like it about him. He just has that old Southern ball coach vibes. And I like it. What is something schematics wise from that defense that Colorado fans could kind of expect? Because obviously we've talked about it. We shaded the Pac-12 defense a little bit. It's all right. We did. I'm out here on the West Coast. We shaded. It's all right. Something that we don't really see in the Pac-12. What is something that he's going to bring defensively?
Oh, just man coverage and ability to apply pressure. I mean, he really does a great job, with his defensive ends too. I think that Sal Sunseri there, who's the defensive line coach, I mean, they're going to really be able to scheme up together and come up with some really good things. And his ability to simplify the game and not do too much, really do what his players do best, is what Charles Kelly does really well. And like I said, he's got some other really great coaches on staff, like Sal Sunseri, who was a defensive coordinator in the SEC himself. So I mean, them two together, I mean, it's going to be phenomenal. And obviously, Deion knows a lot of defense. So I mean, them together, I mean, I think that you're going to see a lot of good man coverage and some different things on defense and just their ability to get pressure off the edge. I think that they'll be able to scheme that up. So I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, and if Colorado fans, if you ever doubt Charles Kelly or Sal Sunseri, go to 24/7 Sports, click on their little recruiting profile, and just look at all the 5 stars and talented players that they brought in, and just have some hope. If you look at Charles Kelly's, it's Cormani McClain, the Alabama 5-star safety that's probably going to start as a freshman this year. His name is escaping my mind, but Charles Kelly got him, Caleb Downs, there it is, got him, and then bounced to take the Colorado job, and then kind of flipped Cormani from all the Florida schools. So they have some recruiting savvy. They got some defensive savvy. There's a lot to be excited about. Me and Clint, when we come back from the break, are going to be talking about Colorado's ceiling in 2023. Is it low? Is it high? Is the ceiling the roof? I don't know. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Okay, Clint, we are back. It was a little weird break because I don't press anything. We just sit there and stare at each other for a couple seconds. It's okay. We're back, though. I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in to Locked on Buffs and making it your first listen every day, by the way. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Clint, we're talking about the ceiling for Colorado. If you're a betting man, which I don't know if it's legal to bet in Tennessee, so I'm not going to ask you if you are, unless it is, then sure. But the over-under is at 3.5. I myself am not a betting man in California, wink, wink. It's not legal to bet here, of course. But Colorado's win total is at 3.5. We talked about how good the offense could be, how good the defense could be. Do you see them reaching those expectations, exceeding them, or maybe just being kind of eh?
I mean, I think that I would go with the over. It's obviously a tough schedule right off the bat. You have TCU. Let's see, and then you have Nebraska, and then you have Nebraska after that. I think that they win, 6 games. If I had to say, I would say 6 games. I think that they find a way in the Pac-12 to win 6 games. It's not really a dig on the Pac-12, but I think that with the players that they have there on roster now, I think that they'll be able to muster out 6 games, and maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. TCU right off the bat, then they have Nebraska. If you go down the schedule, I think that Colorado State's a very winnable game. Arizona State's winnable, Stanford. Arizona, Washington State. I think that they can muster out 6 wins and be bowl eligible. I think that'll be a huge step after going 1-11.
Yeah, I've been talking about it. 6 is like that's my sweet spot. That's my prediction. I went through the schedule. I see 6 winnable games. Obviously, there's the Pac-12 after dark factor, which there's no metric for it. It's just a factor, whether people want to admit it or not. There's just going to be a game somewhere down the line where it's an 8:30 p.m. start Pacific time, and Colorado's playing a team that probably should beat them, and they're going to beat them by 2 touchdowns just because Pac-12 after dark. That's where I got my start. I was a production assistant at the Pac-12 network, and we just saw it every single week. Just something did not go as it should, and I expect that's gonna happen this year. I need 2 things from you, Clint. I need one thing that could prevent Colorado from reaching those 6 wins, and then one thing that could maybe help them. Say they get 8 wins. What would that one thing be?
For them to prevent them from winning 6, you said? Sorry, I think you froze up on me. Oh, there you are.
Are you good? Can you hear me?
I got you now. I think it froze up on me.
Okay, just go ahead. We'll just keep going. We'll power through.
Say that question one more time.
Okay. What do you think can be the one thing that prevents Colorado from getting 6 wins, and the one thing that maybe helps them overachieve and get like 8 wins?
Yeah, I think that defense is obviously going to be the biggest factor that could prevent them from winning that much. I mean, we talked about the defenses in the Pac-12, but I think their big playability on offense could really take them to new heights. And Sean Lewis, I think, is a huge factor there in that offense, and with Shedeur and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. So I mean, I think that those type of players could have them reach maybe 6, 7, 8 games maybe to win. Who knows? But there's some talent on the roster now, so we'll see.
Talent is everything. You heard it here first, folks. Clint's calling for a Colorado national championship. I appreciate you, Clint, for coming on. We talked everything in between from Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, what Colorado's ceiling is. I think it's 6 wins. Clint as well thinks it's 6 wins. A lot could go right, a lot could go wrong, but we'll find out when football starts, which is 7 weekends away, I believe. I think we're 7 Saturdays away from football starting, which is exciting. Clint, tell people what you're working on, where they can find you, and just everything about yourself.
Yeah, Clint Brew 247. I'm doing evaluations and rankings for 24/7 Sports, and I've done the transfer portal rankings the past couple years. I'm going to continue to do a lot more rankings for 24/7 Sports and evaluating. And it's been fun. I'm looking forward to the future there. Sure.
I look forward to seeing your rankings, especially I know Colorado fans like it when Colorado's at the top. They do probably have some beef with you though. Colorado getting bumped down to the second spot.